I am one of those mommy sellers, y'all. I may now be the co-founder of a big service firm with 85 employees. We fix people's problems on Amazon.
Leslie, I know you're busy. Children, seller, Riverbend Consulting. And so you probably don't need another project. What about creating like a monthly course or something like that for sellers?
And unless you have some kind of brother-in-law who's a VP at Amazon, if you do it twice, you're gone almost every time.
Treading water is the same as drowning to people like you and me. You better start swimming. Welcome to I'm the One podcast. I'm your host, Rob Green.
Hi, Leslie. This is Leslie Hansen with us today at I'm the One podcast. Nice to see you.
So good to see you, Rob. I'm excited to be here.
Well, I'm excited to talk to you. I mean, we just talked a little bit off recording here, and we could probably talk for hours and hours about war stories and what's worked on Amazon and what hasn't worked on Amazon. So I'm going to try to stay focused as I can and try to keep this as short as possible. But I just want to give a quick introduction about yourself. I mean, I think a lot of people that have been in the space for a while know you as the co-founder of Riverbend Consulting. And I know you've been an author, you've got a new book coming out here in January, but do you want to give a quick introduction for yourself?
Absolutely. So I am one of those mommy sellers, y'all. I may now be the co-founder of a big service firm with 85 employees. And what we do every day is we fix people's problems on Amazon. Like when their accounts get suspended, their ASINs get suspended. I'm the emergency room. People call me for help. I started selling on Amazon, though, back in 2010. And I was one of those mommy sellers you hear about. I had to quit a really awesome consulting career because I had a kiddo who was struggling in school, and we got him diagnosed with autism and ADD and a whole lot of other challenges. And my husband and I decided we needed to homeschool him for a few years and just do lots of therapy. And so that is what I did. But we really needed my income because all that therapy is really expensive and some of it's not covered by insurance. So I learned about selling on Amazon. So I would homeschool my kid during the day, and I had another little one as well. And then in the evenings, my husband would get home and I would go source inventory because this was Wild West days. I would go, RA source and fill up the SUV with stuff and go to book sales, all that. And on the weekends, as a family, we would prep inventory for FBA and ship it. So I had a 2-year-old who could sticker inventory. And then my older kid was, sorting into the boxes. We did it as a family because this was all done for the family. So I am the mommy seller you've always heard in the legends. That's me. And then I've turned it into a much bigger, better career in the Amazon world.
That's awesome. I love those stories. It hits home for me. I have 2 daughters, they're 14 and 13. And when they were little, we had a patio lights brand that we sold a credible amount of patio lights, and people would buy a bunch of them and then sometimes use them, sometimes not. So we would have like a little assembly line at home where they would repackage the patio lights that were unused in boxes, and they would get a quarter for every box that they put it in and taped it up. So those bring back memories for me of doing that at home and repackaging and sending back into Amazon. So I love that. But so you started off as a mommy seller, as you call it, and you built this really large. I mean, I think Riverbend is the name in helping people. I mean, that's how I know you and how I know Riverbend is the name in helping people with their issues on Amazon that they can't resolve on their own. Is that fair to say?
Yes, it is. And it can be all kinds of random things. For example, brand registry enforcement, where you can't add a brand, or catalog issues where you just don't understand why you can't fix your listing. Or, a lot of people use FBA reimbursement services. We do that. But when you have to go beyond it because they turn down your reimbursement and you're like, hang on, I gave you all the proof. We're the folks who can escalate that. So we're your suspensions plus random problems that you don't know where to go. That's us.
That's awesome. I mean, well, the good news is, and maybe the bad news is, there's no shortage of those, and I don't see it getting any better. I mean, it seems like as time has gone on, it's gotten more complex. I mean, every time I meet with Amazon, I'm going up there to Seattle tomorrow for a meeting on Thursday. And every time I meet with them, it's not that the people don't want to help. I'm going to a Voice of the Seller meeting on Thursday to talk about their data and what they're sharing with sellers on Thursday. And they want to help. The people want to help, but it almost feels like the system is the difficulty. The way the system is structured. Has that been your experience?
I agree. I tell people all the time, my business actually should not exist.
Mm.
If Amazon were a seller friendly company that had great systems in place for third party sellers, which third party sellers make up 2/3 of their sales on Amazon.com, then I wouldn't have a business. There would be no need for me. I wouldn't be hiring expensive ex Amazonian employees to solve issues. Because believe me, all the brains to solve things is not me. It is my ex Amazonians who know all the things. But a lot of it is Amazon grew as this entrepreneurial company where everyone was supposed to take their area that is their department or their project, and they're supposed to be an entrepreneur with it. And then they move on from that project. And whoever inherits it doesn't love it and nurture it the same way. And the same thing has happened with these teams. Like, as an example, brand registry support launched a couple of years ago as a separate team from seller support. And when they first launched, they were awesome. And they would really solve things and escalate and get it done. And then those guys all rotated out to somewhere else because they were like MVP support people. And the new people were not trained the same. They didn't take the same ownership. And with each round, and Amazon has a value of moving people to different positions too. Some of them move every year to a different department, and all this knowledge goes with them.
Yeah.
So you end up with people who don't really know functionally what to do, and the training has gotten poorer over time. And they've outsourced to all of these other countries where the people are very capable.
Mm-hmm.
They need more training, not less. And so they do the best they can with what they're given. They just don't invest like they used to really in the seller support. I know that was a long, rambly answer to say yes.
No, that's great. I mean, again, the demand for your services are not going away, right? So how do you think that, and this is going to be a large question, but how do you think a seller on Amazon should think about interacting with Amazon today? Right. So how do they try to, and no offense, but how do they not get to the point where they need your services because they have a suspended account or something like that? How should they think about Amazon today? And what I mean by this is that in the past, it was kind of the Wild West. There were some people that were definitely pushing the envelope. I think some people still do push the envelope. But how should they think about interacting with Amazon today, maybe as different from the past?
So 2 different paths to think about. One of those is when you do already have a problem. So if you're interacting with seller support or seller performance, and you've already got something you're trying to address them, there's a specific way you should talk to Amazon. No emotion, no personal stuff. They don't care what your sales were last year. They don't care how important your business is to you. If we have to escalate to an executive, one of them might care. And I can really make them care if you're a veteran or a woman-owned business. But, the frontline people, they just don't care. So you also need to tell them very explicitly, hey, I need your help with this. I already tried this and it didn't work. And so can you please this? So this is the key. You need to know what the ask is. You can't say, hey, this inventory, it keeps getting stranded over and over, and I don't understand. You need to tell them you need the ASIN refreshed. So you've got to find someone who will give you the magic words, which is, I need the ASIN refreshed. So each time you're going to explain what went wrong, what you did, and what you need. And ideally, each one is like a sentence, not much more. Then the other path of knowing how to interact with Amazon is you've got to know the rules so that your goal is to never interact with Amazon. You know why? Because Amazon doesn't want to interact with you. And the more they have to interact with you, the more expensive you are to them. So they never want to hear from you, and you want to never have to reach out. So you need to actually take the time, which is a pain in the behind, to learn all the rules. You have to search in the help on Seller Central. I know the search mechanism is broken. I know they changed it and it's worse. I know all these things. You still have to spend the time to search your category to see if there's specific rules for your listings or for restricted products. Or, can I ask people for reviews? They tell you in there. You just have to take the time to really learn the rules, or else find someone, find a good consultant, a good agency, message me on LinkedIn and ask me the question, because I will tell you to keep you out of trouble. You've got to really learn it up front, because you never want to talk to Amazon. It's just going to frustrate you and keep you up at night.
Leslie, I know you're busy, children, seller, Riverbend Consulting, and so you probably don't need another project. But I'm an entrepreneur, so all I had to do is have ideas. What about creating like a monthly course or something like that for sellers from Riverbend that keeps them up to date so they can stay on the right side of Amazon? Have you ever thought about something like that? That's a proactive engagement. Maybe it's a webinar once a month, and hey, this is where you ought to be. These are the ground rules for how to play. And then here's the changes that have happened in the past month. Have you ever considered something like that?
So we have talked about that. We do have a monthly newsletter that goes out that's free, where we do talk about updates, new rules. We also include what are the big enforcements this month, because you need to know that trend. If something happens to you, like reasons for suspension, so you know it's not just you. So like right now, Amazon has started suspending accounts for inauthentic again, which wasn't a thing for about 2 years. And used to, way back in the day when I first started writing appeals for people 9-10 years ago, that was pretty much the only appeal type. That was like the number one thing was inauthentic, and it went away and it's back. So it's good to have these trends and to know what's going on. We do interact a lot with people on LinkedIn and Facebook and answer questions. But also, here's a crazy thing. We have a phone number, and you can call it and humans answer it.
Stop it.
And they will talk to you about your problem. And I know that's nuts, but our salespeople are actually more like customer relations people. And they will tell you straight up, like, yeah, you need to hire someone, or no, you don't. And we're very honest about the no, you don't, go try this. And they will talk to you about your issues. And then as far as like learning to sell, okay, so that's a lot of what I threw into the book too. So instead of having to pay, some guru out there $5,000 a month to be in their coaching circle, you can start with a very inexpensive investment of $25.
I love it. I want to talk about your book, and also in the show notes, we're going to put in there how they can subscribe to the monthly newsletter, because I think there's a tremendous value that I don't see. I get a few newsletters, but I think the perspective that you and Riverbend bring is really important to sellers, because this changes so fast. How do you stay on top of it all the time? Because they'll go and just change terms and conditions, and they don't tell you. You don't get an email that says, hey, by the way, we changed our terms and conditions. And then the second thing is we'll put the phone number in there to the show notes, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely. We love to have people call, and that way we can start that relationship. And if it's not a real problem for you now, you can always just come back later if it is. We also have a lot of blogs on our website that are about these kind of enforcement problems. And you're right about the changes. It's really interesting, because when we get the blurbs, or what we call them, when you get a message from seller performance or a nasty gram from seller support, they're all, y'all may not know this, I'm sure most of you do though, they're all canned messages.
Yeah.
Like people in seller support and seller performance, they don't really do anything except paste in an ASIN and send it most of the time. People on my team wrote a lot of those canned messages. Some of those canned messages are 15 years old and older.
Okay.
And so when we see a new one pop up, we're like, what is going on? Why is this new? And we try and figure out why. So yeah, that's the kind of stuff we put in the newsletter.
I love that. So let's talk about the book. You've got a book coming out in January. It's available for pre-order, I believe, on Amazon now. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. And anywhere you want to buy it, if you don't like Amazon, we've got Barnes & Noble and all those good places.
Awesome. So tell us about what was a catalyst for you writing a book? You'd mentioned to me before that you had written some other books for some other people, but what's the catalyst for you writing your own book?
So this is really fun for me, because I am always the person who comes up, like you said earlier, I have so many things going on, but I always come up with the next thing I need to do. And I've had it in my head. I've wanted to write a book for a long time to help sellers. And I spoke at a conference, and 2 weeks later, I got an email from an editor at a publishing house saying, I saw you speak at this conference. I loved that you were no nonsense, down to earth, giving realistic advice. Do you want to write a book about how to sell on Amazon? I see there's not a lot in that category that's not self-published. And this would be distributed by Simon & Schuster. And so, of course, I said, I'm on board. So it was really one of those right place, right time, where you have something you've wanted to do, and then someone gives you a reason to actually sit down and do it. So exciting. And he gave me a lot of great perspective, my editor did, from the outside as someone who really knows almost nothing about Amazon. It was great working with someone who brought me all the new seller questions that I've heard before. But as he would read through my manuscript, he's saying, well, as a new seller, what about this? What about that? It was such a blast to put it together.
Yeah, I would imagine you suffer from the curse of knowledge, right? You know so much that sometimes it's hard to pull yourself out of it, right? Because you're like, listen, everybody already knows this, but especially a new seller, they don't know this. It's not. But for you, it's common knowledge, right? Like, of course, don't put a review sticker on the top of your lid on a supplement that drives them to a funnel that directs them to only positive reviews. We all know that have been in the space for a while. Some sellers don't really know that, and then they run into a whole lot of trouble. So tell us, like, who is the ideal reader for this book, and what do you think they'll get out of it?
Well, and when you say the curse of knowledge, I also had the opposite problem on some chapters where my editor's like, really, that's just so much detail. Please stop. It's just too many words and too much detail. Quit it. So an ideal reader for this book, it can be someone who wants to be an entrepreneur. They need a side hustle. Or it can be someone who has already invested into a brand, or they've been tasked. Here's a great group. They've been tasked with the Amazon channel at an existing company that sells in a lot of places. Mm-hmm. So you know just enough about Amazon to be dangerous, but you don't really know how to think it through. So what the book isn't is a get-rich-quick scheme, or, hey, for just $5,000 and 5 hours a week, you can be a bajillionaire and buy a Lamborghini tomorrow. It is not that. It is for someone who wants a calm, reasonable way to make a living that they invest in over time, and it is for the long haul, and they want to gradually grow it into whatever they want it to be. I talk a lot in the book about, let's set your goals. Not that guy over there who's saying you want a hot car and hot women and a mansion. No, let's set your goals, whether it's financial freedom for you and your family, or if it is a Lamborghini, cool, let's get you that. But let's do it the right way, the safe way, and understanding. So like if you started up a bakery, everyone knows you need to get a health permit. You have to have inspections, and you need an oven, and you need to make sure it's calibrated. When you go into Amazon, you don't really know what you need. And a lot of people don't tell you what you need. They only focus on one thing. They focus on revenue numbers. Mm-hmm. There is this curse of Amazon Facebook groups that I think everyone who's a seller has seen it, where people post from their Amazon seller app. There's the first screen when you open it up, and it shows these gold bars for, you can do it for each day or each week or each month, and it shows your revenue. And so people want to look really hot and cool, and they post these revenue screenshots. And then after they've had a few good ones, they say, I'm going to be your consultant and your guru, and you pay me so much money, and I'm going to get you those revenue screenshots. What they don't tell you is they actually lost money that month. Mm-hmm. Or they don't even know if they made money because they never did their books.
Yep. Yeah.
Or they don't understand their expenses. Or they got hit by a huge storage bill because no one told them about Amazon seller fees. Or they didn't understand how much PPC could cost. So what this book does is it lays out all of the risks as well as the rewards, the things that can go well and the things that can go poorly, so that you can go into it with your eyes wide open instead of just, oh, I'm going to sell $1 million worth of product and end up losing $50,000 for the year.
Yeah, I mean, you're preaching to the choir here. It drives me insane how little it's run like a business. A lot of sellers on Amazon don't think of it as a business, right? It's more of a hobby, which is fine when you're starting out, but you do need to understand your unit economics, your financials. These are some pretty obvious things. And it reminds me of one of my favorite sayings. I used to work in finance, and it's that revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, and cash flow is reality. And too many people talk about vanity all the time, and it's just revenue, revenue, revenue. I know a lot of people who do insane revenue numbers that don't make any profit. And they don't make any. I mean, they're crazy numbers, tens of millions of dollars a year. Now, like you said earlier, what's their goal? Their goal is to go grow as fast as possible. And that's okay losing money because they've raised money and they want to grow really, really large and get omni-channel and then be acquired for $100 million. That's fine. But if you're trying to run a small solopreneur business and grow a little bit, you better make some money. Like you can't, what game are you playing, I think is really critical. So as you've been in this space for 10 years, the game has changed. We're playing a different game now than we were 5 years ago, 10 years ago. What do you see now from the people that are being successful? Is there any case studies or anything you could share about some examples of what the people that are winning now are doing right?
Yes, and some of it is so very basic.
Perfect.
So the people the people winning now understand the money is made at the buy. If you get sucked into buying inventory because you get too excited about the category, if it's your own PL product, so you think it must be awesome, something about it is really glittery, and you overspend on your inventory, it's over. It's over before you've sold anything. You're not going to make any profit. And even though, like you said, your goal might even be to grow lots of revenue and not care about profitability, but if you can't show a potential buyer that it can be profitable in the future, you got a problem.
Yes.
So they know, they're really smart about the buy. Then, as you also said, they run it like a business. Even if it's a side hustle, you have to run it like a business. So they do their books and they close them every month. They log every expense, because if you do not log your expenses, you are giving money to the government that you should not be giving them, that you need in your business. So that means your mileage. That means your electricity bill. That means everything, all of your VAs, family members on your payroll. You need to actually pay them and set them up as employees so that they are an expense if they're doing real work. All of these things can really hurt your business if you don't do them. So they run their business like a real business. They close their books every month, and then they learn how to outsource. And to me, this is where you can change your margins overnight. So if you can find a VA who is well qualified, and you can either train them, or you can hire companies that will train them for you, or you can hire companies that have teams of VAs and it costs a little more, but they oversee them instead of you overseeing them. All of these are reasonable options. It depends on your experience level, your comfort, how involved you want to be. But as soon as you can write, and I've got this in the book too, writing SOPs, standard operating procedures, for as many things as you can, and then outsourcing those to inexpensive VAs so that your business doesn't run you.
Yeah.
And you can decide how you spend your time. Do you spend, is this a side gig? Because if it's a side gig, you've still got a 40-hour week job. You need those VAs so you don't lose your mind. Or do you want to grow it quickly? You need to be focusing on developing new product. You need to be focusing on suppliers and on those buys. You shouldn't be answering customer service messages. That's crazy. Your time is too valuable. And nothing should be done more than one time from scratch. So like customer service messages, you want to tank your business, answer those in the middle of the night when you're sleepy and grumpy, because you'll be like cussing at people who tell you stuff about your product, or answer Amazon's messages when you're sleepy and grumpy. Everything should be a canned message, already done, systematized, where anyone can do it for you.
I love that. I love it a lot. I think those are some core business practices that work in almost all businesses, right? Building a team, putting the right processes in place. Specifically around Amazon, what do you see nowadays as the biggest mistakes current Amazon sellers are making? Before they get to you, they must be making, most likely they're making mistakes that you guys are then resolving. What are the most common, and it doesn't have to be common, actually, it could be something that's not quite as common that we're making that we don't even know about. I feel like sometimes we make mistakes, and then maybe later on, Amazon decides to look back and go, hey, by the way, we forgot to tell you we're going to start enforcing this mistake that you're making now. And they kind of slap you backwards almost. Like, how do you think about that?
So restricted products is a huge issue because it actually destroys businesses. And that's where you're selling something that Amazon doesn't allow to be sold, or it's not a legal product in the states you're selling it, or you're making claims that aren't allowed. And that can be on so many things, y'all. It is on health products, beauty products. There are a lot of kind of gray area products that Amazon doesn't like you to sell. Anything that's a weapon, you can sell weapons, certain weapons. You have to be so careful, though. Like you said earlier, some of it is that people try and get away with stuff. I had a guy just last week who had a microneedling derma roller that was allowed, created a listing for it. They flagged it. He sent in documents. It was approved. And then he promptly changed it into a different product with microneedling that isn't allowed. And so Amazon caught that because it's not a legal product to sell. But there are so many products out there that folks don't realize. You've got to have testing from your factory. You have to have COAs that show the ingredients in the product. You have to be using a certain kind of manufacturer, like someone who's GMP certified. It's a general manufacturing principle certified, or good manufacturing. It's one of those positive words, so that they have all the certifications that you need so that Amazon trusts the product is high quality. A lot of folks instead, they get really excited about, like, beauty's such a great category, excellent margins. You wouldn't believe how much vitamin C serum is sold on Amazon. People get so excited about it. Yeah. And then they don't bother to research and say, oh, oopsie, I needed all these documents. I need all these lists of ingredients. I really shouldn't be sourcing this from overseas, whatever the case might be. So researching the categories and products, you've really got to understand them. And then the second thing is you got to be so careful about believing people. I go to conferences with experienced sellers where advice is given out that I'm the one sitting on my hands and holding my breath because I don't want to contradict someone up on the stage. So I'm being very quiet, but they're telling people, oh yeah, you can create a Facebook group and give away free product and, offer coupon codes, or you can do refunds via PayPal for people who give you great reviews, and it's fine. Amazon will never catch it. Tell that to my 200 clients that I've worked with who've done that and gotten suspended. So you got to be really careful who you listen to on those kinds of things, on the trying to get ahead on the platform strategies. That's where the danger comes in of how can I be better? How can I sell more? You got to really just not believe everything someone tells you. And, there's so many people out there, like, softwares that they say it's Amazon compliant. Amazon told us it's compliant. Amazon doesn't do that. Amazon doesn't say your service is compliant. You've got to do the research yourself and make a good choice based on your personal risk profile.
I think that's great advice. I think the biggest challenge in any space, but especially in our space, is how do you know who to trust, right? Because you've got a lot of these guys that were maybe failed sellers, and now that they're a guru, for lack of a better word, and they're trying to give advice, and they're hitting the circuit, and they're speaking about these things. And not that everybody's this way, but there are a few of them out there that are pushing these, what's it called? Give me some money. You've got too much money in your bank account, automatic stores, right? And they're like, oh, you've got 30 grand in your account. We'll do a done for you service. I mean, that's the most insane thing I've ever heard in my life, as if it's just plug and play. Anybody that's ever spent any time on Amazon knows this is the last thing from plug and play. It's not easy. It might sound simple, but it's not easy to do. And I find that's the biggest challenge. So I agree with you 100%. Go to conferences, go meet people, find out what they're really talking about. Do they actually do the things that they're saying they do? And do they work, and are they compliant? Because I think that's what I feel. I feel bad for so many people that have been steered the wrong direction, and they've gone down, they put their life savings into something. They're trying to build a better life. They're trying to be an entrepreneur, or they're continuing to be an entrepreneur, and they get put down the wrong path. And I've seen so many people just get bad advice. And then and sometimes you guys can probably help them come back, but in other times they've probably gone too far. And honestly, and then they can't come back. And now they've got to start over, essentially. They're starting from scratch. So I think you are preaching to the choir here, for me at least. That is the biggest thing I have a problem with, is people giving bad advice, and then people blindly follow that bad advice, because there isn't that vetting. There's no vetting really for anybody. They can just say what they want. And listen, I can say what I want too, but you really get to meet somebody and you talk to them face to face, you can understand when people are blowing smoke or not. I mean, you can tell people that know what they're doing. versus the people that don't know what they're doing. So I love that advice. I think the book is going to be a great opportunity for people to learn from your perspective. You've been a seller, you run this consulting business. How can they stay on the right side of Amazon's perspective? And then how do they solve it if they accidentally step over the line? But not enough people spend time and energy on this enforcement piece. They just think it's going to all kind of take care of itself and we'll deal with that problem later. And we've seen some big blowups in this space. And I'd love to dig into a couple of these in the last few months, if you wouldn't mind.
So throw out what you've heard, and then I've got some related similar businesses that I can draw some parallels to as well.
Perfect. I had heard that they had received a warning from Amazon. Again, this is just pure rumor, but from this point, not confirmed by anybody at Bloom or anybody at Amazon. But they had been warned already, and then they were using a sticker on their lid, and that sticker took them to a website. And on that website, they were steering customers, which, a lot of people have done in the past from a supplement perspective. And it would steer the customers. If you want to leave a 5-star review or 5-star rating or whatever they called it, I didn't go through the funnel. It would say, oh, please leave a review here. And if it was anything other than 5-star, it was, hey, contact us here or email us here, or whatever the context. So I believe Amazon considers that steering, which is separating the good from the bad and trying to drive only good to reviews and bad to we'll resolve this problem. That's what I had heard through the rumor mill.
So internally at Amazon, they call it cherry picking.
Perfect.
There's also problems. Yeah, there's also problems with right now with sellers. I have one I'm working on at this moment. It's a seller who used some software to help manage the request to review process. Mm-hmm. It automated that request a review process, which you can do that. You can request reviews from people. The problem is that the software, it has an algorithm that you can adjust so that it only sends those requests to people who did not ask for a refund or return. Same thing. You either send it to everybody or you send it to nobody. You can't only ask for reviews from people who are more likely to give you a positive review. And I'll tell you what is so dangerous. And we see this over and over again in the supplement space, because the supplement space is super competitive and it is full of black hat competitors. I'm not calling Bloom Nutrition or my guy that I'm working with black hat competitors. No. There are black hat competitors who come after people like Bloom Nutrition and my other client. So a lot of times, because of the black hat tactics, these good actors feel compelled to do things that they should not be doing. I think they feel like they're under so much pressure on the Amazon platform by the bad guys that they make decisions that aren't good decisions. Unfortunately, this is the one enforcement area where it is 2 strikes and you are out. And unless you have some kind of brother-in-law who's a VP at Amazon, if you do it twice, you're gone almost every time. I've worked with very, very large clients who've come to us when they've done this a second time. And we've told them, you're not going to get back on. And they'll say, we want to pay you. We've invested so much that your fee is nothing compared to our problem. So we want to try. And we don't get them back on. We just don't, unless they've got favors. We talk to them about what favors can you call in, who do you know, and talk to them about, we give them a plan of action that they can present to those people, like their SaaS core manager or their friend that they've developed at Amazon. But as far as regular appeal paths, you're done.
Yeah.
So it is so dangerous to even ask friends and family for reviews. You know why? If you get friends and family reviews and Amazon figures it out, then that's your 1 strike. So what if you grow and then some employee or VA of yours who is tasked with more sales in a certain brand of yours or a certain product, they're like feeling the pressure. And so they ask for friends and family reviews without you knowing. You're done. And it's not even something you did. Or a competitor sets up a Facebook group that directs traffic to your website, which they do this. And then that's your 2nd strike, and try to prove the negative that it wasn't you who set that up. So it's just way too dangerous. And as for the objection, Amazon can't possibly know about your friends and family. I had a client who did not ask friends and family for reviews, but he had a wonderful great aunt who was really just loved him so much. And so she went to her book club. And she asked all of her friends in her book club to buy his product and give reviews. They lived in a different city from the guy. It doesn't matter, probably because Maybe he sent her a gift through Amazon at some point, or she sent him something, or who knows? There's that website Spokio where it
Yeah.
shows like everyone you've ever shared a household with.
Yep.
Amazon has access to all this data. They know, and I like to remind people, Amazon works for the National Security Agency, AWS, which is the server farms at Amazon, and the data crunching arm and the data storage arm of Amazon. They offer services to the National Security Agency. Those are the guys who take all of the data that goes with your phone calls, and they put all the data together and figure out if you're a terrorist. You know that program?
Yep.
That is run by AWS. If they can figure out from the data attached to phone calls who the terrorists are, I promise they're going to know if your cousin reviewed your product.
That is scary and enlightening at the same time. I didn't think about the NSA perspective. I definitely don't think that trying to trick Amazon is a good way to go. But I will comment that I sell supplements. I've sold supplements in the past. Brand I've sold. We've been attacked so many times. It's been unbelievable. It draws in a lot of the attacks from competitors because of what you said. It's just so easy for them to do it because they know what you're not supposed to do also. So then they just come after you and do it, and they make it look like you. We've had that situation happen. And like you said, trying to prove the negative is a really, really difficult path to go down with Amazon. Is there anything, and boy, if you've got an answer for this, Leslie, this will blow me out of the water, but is there a positive way because to get reviews? And what I mean by that, as a new seller, you're starting off with a new product. You don't probably have an email list of customers to even get the sales. Is there any suggestions on how to get reviews the right way? I mean, obviously sell more product, but is there any thoughts you have on how to get people to actually take action on positively or negatively giving a proper review of your product?
It's really rough these days. I wish I had a magical answer. I hate to even say this out loud because it's more money for Amazon, but Vine reviews do work. Vine is a program where you can pay to get reviews, not positive reviews, just reviews, and you give away the product, and it's on Amazon, and Amazon has this list of approved reviewers. It is at least a start.
Yep.
Also, if you do invest in things like TikTok and social media, that does tend to lead to more reviews on sales than people who just organically find the product on Amazon. I'm not saying to say anything hinky in the captions on your TikTok or on your social posts. I'm just saying people who interact with your product, learn about your product, are directed to your Amazon sales page on those kind of platforms are just more likely to actually type out a review than other people. So it's statistically, it's women. The younger, the better, and they want everyone to know what they think. But I don't have any great magical answers, unfortunately. And also, it helps to remember too. People get so mad because they don't understand why Amazon's cracking down on reviews. Amazon doesn't want to crack down on reviews because it does nothing for them to crack down on reviews and to spend this time removing all these reviews. They're doing it because the Federal Trade Commission is all over them. And the Federal Trade Commission is the one doing this enforcement. The Federal Trade Commission is actually directly come after sellers on Amazon and brands on Amazon, including in the supplements category, for fake reviews or for where they do that thing where they create a child listing under a product and it appends the reviews and then they edit it and change it and magically make it into another product. So the new product suddenly has a gajillion reviews and then they ask Amazon to separate them. It's tough for Amazon. Therefore, it all rolls downhill to the sellers.
Ghost listing trick has been around for a while, and some people call it the zombie listing also. There's always going to be a game, I think, right, where there's a supervising entity, which is Amazon, which is getting supervised by the FTC. And then there are the players in the game that are always trying to push the envelope because the rewards are so significant. And just to add to what you're saying, we never used Vine until last year. We've started using Vine now because you need those first few reviews. And by no means are they positive. Like you said, some of those people are very, very tough. They're very critical of the product because they're trying to stay on the right side of Amazon too. But it does give you kind of that jump start to get the first, 5, 10, 15 reviews. and to compete, because it is really difficult to compete with no reviews or a very small amount of reviews on the platform. And we could talk for hours, Leslie. I'll wind it up here or finish it up here in a second. But I do have a question. Did you see recently about Amazon was testing the 500 plus reviews on the search results or 100 plus reviews? Did you see that when they were playing that test recently a couple months ago?
Yes, and I really disliked the one where they were doing the bizarre composite star number and not show. Sometimes they would show, oh, it was 500 plus or whatever. But it was very. So Amazon did this test where they were displaying the review numbers in different ways, like how many reviews and how many stars. And to me, several of them actually made the products look a lot worse than they are. I really didn't like it for sellers. It gave me icky feelings. When I looked at them, I was like, I wouldn't buy that. But then when I looked at it the old way, I was like, oh, I'd buy that product. So I don't know what their goal was, but some of it seems to have gone away. I hope forever.
4 years ago, I was at Amazon in Seattle, and I had a conversation with somebody that was in charge of this, and they said, well, what are your challenges? And I said, well, it's hard to launch a new product, regardless of how great it is, when the number one seller has 200,000 reviews. And they said, well, what if the search results look differently, more like a LinkedIn does, where it just says 500 plus, or maybe it's 10,000 plus, or some other metric. And I said, well, that would change the game. I mean, because if you're going into a space where it's a different number, you could still show it on the product details page, but the search results is the hardest part. If you're right next to somebody and they have 200,000 and you have 3, you're not getting the click. I don't care how great the product is. So I do think they'll play with that more in the future. I have no idea what it's going to end up looking like, but I think that's something for all sellers to stay on top of, because a lot of people rely on that gap or that moat that they call it, the review moat that they have. A lot of aggregators bought products based on that review moat. Right. And if that review moat goes away, that might change the game significantly for us. But I want to say thank you for taking the time to chat with me. I mean, we can talk Amazon all day long, but I really want to encourage people to check out Leslie's new book that's coming out. Pre-order it now so you don't forget about it. Don't waste any time. Go pre-order it. Check it out. Get on. I think it's end of January. Does that sound right, Lesley? Like January 23rd? Of 2024?
It comes out January 23rd. And if you go to theamazonincubator.com,
perfect.
It's got all the pre-order links to all the stores. And then if you if you pre-order, we've got bonuses you can download too, which is always fun.
Even better. Just go to theamazonincubator.com. And I just want to say thank you for taking the time. I might have to hit you up from those services that I might need help with some of these days, but hopefully I can stay on the right side of Amazon. So thank you so much for spending time with us.
Thank you for having me here.
If you enjoyed today's podcast, please subscribe, leave a review, and share with friends. Visit I'mTheOne.com and ask me anything. And as always, stay curious and never stop becoming the one.